And thank you for being here today, and thank you to Sean Casey, the Liberal critic for Veterans Affairs and Member of Parliament for Charlottetown, who continues to work so hard on behalf of all of our veterans. The Last Post Fund that we're here to talk about is an important program with the goal to ensure that no eligible veteran is denied a dignified funeral and burial, as well as a military gravestone due to insufficient funds at time of death. That's the objective of the program. Unfortunately, at the moment, the Last Post Fund is far from reaching its objective because it lacks sufficient funding and is forced to apply outdated eligibility criteria. As a Member of Parliament for Randenburen and St. George's, a riding with over 700 active Canadian Armed Forces personnel and many more retired veterans, it is an honour and a privilege to introduce my private member's motion to enhance the Last Post Fund. Tragically, even though the Conservative government's own departmental officials and countless stakeholder organisations have been asking for changes for years, the government has done nothing. The time for this inaction by this Conservative government is over. This is a critical issue that affects veterans from coast to coast to coast. Improving the Last Post Fund is not only good policy, it is the right thing to do. It is time for the Harper government to stand up and provide proper support to our veterans and their families who have sacrificed so much for Canada and for all of us. From 2006 to 2012, under the Conservatives, the fund was not only cut, but over 66% of applications, which translates to over 20,147 veterans, were rejected. This is totally unacceptable. According to Jean-Pierre Goyer, the Last Post Fund's executive director, $5 million a year would be enough to meet current needs, including opening up the program to more soldiers who served after the Korean War. Unfortunately, this Conservative government has different priorities. While this government squanders millions on propaganda and advertising and other misplaced priorities, veterans' needs are not being met. Unfortunately, there are countless examples of this. Rather than helping today's veterans, the Conservatives are blowing millions on celebrating the War of 1812, in fact, to the tune of $28 million. Instead of enhancing the Last Post Fund, the Conservatives actually spent close to $800,000 fighting veterans in court over their pensions. In addition, the existing amount of assistance offered to veterans is simply inadequate and only a fraction of what serving forces members receive for their funeral costs. There are many cases in my riding and across the country where veterans' families who have either been denied by the Last Post Fund's outdated criteria or not received sufficient assistance were unable to pay for the total costs of a proper burial. In many of these cases, the funeral home pays the balance of the costs out of their own pocket. Quite simply put, it is shameful for the government to treat its veterans this way, and why should a small business have to be put in this predicament? After listening intently to suggestions on how to improve the Last Post Fund from various stakeholders, including Veterans Ombudsman, the Royal Canadian Legion, and the Last Post Fund itself, I am pleased to introduce the following motion. That in the opinion of the House, the Last Post Fund is currently underfunded and excludes deserving veterans, causing unnecessary stress and hardship to families of veterans, and that the House call on the government to do the following. A. Accept the recommendations of successive Veterans Ombudsman calling for expanding and enhanced financial access to the Last Post Fund. B. Accept the advice from the Royal Canadian Legion made in the years 2008, 2010, and 2012, calling for expanded access and financial support for the Last Post Fund. C. Accept 3-year-old advice from departmental officials to expand and enhance financial access to the Last Post Fund. D. Review the Last Post Fund current burial assistance cap of $3,600 with the goal to establish a standard consistent with burial assistance provided to current members of the Canadian Forces. E. Review the means-tested standard applied to the Last Post Fund that currently excludes many veterans, with the goal to improve and lower the qualification standard to access the fund. And F, provide stable long-term funding to the last post fund, with consideration given to establishing a financial escalator tied to the consumer price index. My motion will come up for debate in the coming months during the next replenishment, and I'm encouraging all parties to do just like the Royal Canadian Legion has done and support my motion to ensure that our brave veterans have the proper support and funding that they deserve. As I said, I'm joined by our critic, veterans critic, Sean Casey, and Sean has been involved in this file for a long time, so I'm going to pass the mic to Sean in the event he would like to add something to this. Thank you.
Merci, Judy. Il n'y a pas vraiment beaucoup à ajouter. Judy a vraiment expliqué le rationnel pour la motion. This, unfortunately, is not a new issue. This has been raised in the Senate by Liberal Senator Percy Down, both at committee and in the floor of the Senate. It has also been raised repeatedly at the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs and on the floor of the House of Commons in this Parliament. The Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs, actually, its very first report in this Parliament was a report on commemoration, where there was extensive commentary over the shortcomings in the funding of the last post fund. So, as I indicated, sadly it isn't a new issue, yet there has been no attention paid to it. The motion is particularly timely with the pre-budget consultations taking place right now, and if the government is serious about finally addressing this wrong, we will see this included in the upcoming budget, and that is our hope. Thank you.